guys. We are back on the Next Fix podcast. My name is Ryan Penley, and today we've got a fantastic author, a spectacular man with a spectacular story. His name is Sean Coffey. Welcome to the show, Shaun.
Absolutely, man. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. We are forging through some technical things, but I think anybody in the podcast world feels the pain, the ever looming technological challenges and stuff. So here we are,
Sure.
Two guys on the better end of sobriety. And so that being said, Shaun, I'd love to hear what addiction has looked like, your familiarity with the subject, like how has it influenced your life, and a little bit about your history.
I think if we go, I believe almost all this stuff happens in childhood, right? So we may not realize it till later on, but at least for me, it started with a pretty tumultuous childhood. I grew up with a dad who was schizophrenic. And, he had bipolar and manic depression, and that was when those diagnoses were split apart. Now they're kind of, more put together. But there was an entire childhood and even young adult up to about 18. It was just child abuse, neglect. The list could go on. It was really rough. So I had to grow up in that environment, and you can imagine a child trying to go through life, not being able to show emotions, not being able to have an outlet for anger or for fear, any of that stuff.
Shaun, Shaun, I want to ask you, so was it abusive as a result of his condition, or did you just suffer because he was inept at performing like a well operating father? Was it, what was the maliciousness of the condition? Was it downright abusive, or was it you just were suffering because he was unable to really operate well?
For the most part, that is generational, right? Like my grandfather treated my dad the same way my dad treated me. Grateful that I had a daughter, and I've been able to break the cycle. But yeah, it was more generational. It was probably due to a lot of the things that you just, expressed. It was, he was doing what he was taught, the only way that he knew how. And being a father myself, I know there's no magic yellow parenting for dummies book that you can pick up that's going to teach you how to do that, especially in the early 80s through the middle 90s. So I think he was inept in the fact that he was never properly taught in this stuff, and one of his favorite emotions was anger, and he didn't really I guess he never really got past that. So when you topple all that stuff together and then you put the mental health conditions, it wasn't just that, there was depression, anxiety, and everything else before those were actually real things, or not real things, but like before they were brought more to the light. You topple all that stuff on top of each other, and it's just a recipe for whatever word you want to put there, disaster, because it was literally like my life was like walking on eggshells for the better part of my childhood. You never showed emotion in my dad's house. If you did, that was met with, either emotional or physical abuse. There were a few times so I can remember where I did, show emotion, and that was met with some kind of care in the form of, really hurt myself, and, obviously that, but he never really showed emotion. You never, until it came to a point where he was angry, and then there was a lot of emotion. He didn't really know secondary emotions. He didn't know any of that stuff. So growing up was really rough. It basically made me feel the entire time of being in that household that I was just worthless, and I wasn't worth, being able to figure that out. So I would go to school and act out those behaviors. And I would get the same type of treatment at school, not necessarily the abuse, but more or less like you're the weak kid. I got bullied a lot. I got made fun of all the time. And so I was getting it from all angles.
Right. You've mentioned it several times now, that the inability or lack thereof expression. And I think it's, I'm slightly more privy than the audience as to some of your work. But it screams why you named your book what you named it. And the name of that book is Boys Do Cry. So Shaun is co-author of a magnificent book that's, I think the title, it expresses a lot, and it also directly links to what you're saying here with us today. So I want to know a little bit more about that, because I mean, it seems to be clearly at the forefront of your mind, given like your description, right? So tell us a little bit more about that work.
So right around high school, we moved to Colorado. The short version of this is, from Colorado, I went into the military. I got out. There was about a 12-year addiction. My dad passed away right when I got out of the military. So there was the addiction, also homelessness, and every other thing that you can imagine that comes with addiction, just to kind of put that in a nutshell. In 2018, this woman, Michelle Cadenac, made a book for females, and it was called Uncaged: The Rise of the Badass. And it was 21 stories of females that had, overcome adversity in different types of traumatic situations. So she decided that book really did well, and she wanted to do a male version. I didn't really know if I was going to even do it, but I set up the interview, and I grew a lot just in writing that chapter. She, of course, allowed me to be in the book, and that was so much growth. I mean, at this point, in 2018, I had been working in the human service or substance use field for a few years, and I'm going through it thinking like, I work in the field, like I know a lot, I'm secure with myself, all this stuff. And I remember, writing this chapter, and it was only 3,500 words, just crying, going into therapy and being just like, what the hell's going on with me? And even my therapist was like, you're growing. You're actually facing these things that you kind of stuck in this dark place forever and never dealt with. So the premise of the Boys Do Cry book is just men's mental health and toxic masculinity, and how, it's societal perception of women. It's okay to show emotion, and it's okay to be vulnerable in these different things. And for men, it's really not, and it's still like that. I mean, it's getting a little bit more better, nowadays. But that was, at least in my story, that was the premise, was just that I had to stuff down all the emotions, and I was in my middle 30s, maybe, before I even could recognize or realize what emotions I was actually feeling. So that book was like the catalyst to growth for me, and going into therapy and saying like, I don't want to feel like this anymore. I don't want to react to these scenarios or these situations in my life. I want to respond to them in a way that's healthy and learn from them. And so the book actually catapulted my growth, just my understanding of the world and why things happened the way they did. And it also really helped me engage in a true heartfelt relationship with my mom, which I hadn't had. Maybe when I was 23, we started to kind of get there, but around the writing of the book is when we really started to have in-depth conversations about how her life was with my dad, and why she kind of went the route she did. And I didn't really have a lot of contact with her from young age, because my dad told me, for lack of a better word, he told me a lot of bullshit about how, their interactions and what she felt about me. And that really made me kind of hate her. And I don't say that right now in a bad way. It's just all that I knew as a little kid. So the book kind of prompted these conversations, and really just a safe space between both of us to say, like, this is what I felt and this is what I feel now. And to this day, both her and my stepfather, we have just an amazing relationship. So
look at what I mean. That you said this is 30, or this is the book, or the 3,500 words. The 3,500 words led into the book, correct?
No. So there's 12 stories in that Boys Do Cry book of different men, and I was given a 3,500 word chapter. So it's a pretty decent sized chapter. But yeah, so it's 12 stories.
The power of 3,500 words, but done like wholeheartedly, like the power of the writing, the expression, the work. Like there's no doubt in my mind that like you gave it your all, right? Because what are the signs that you gave it your all? You're feeling emotional transformation by expression, but doing it like in a constructive manner, right? You're intending it for it to be read. It's not like even though journaling is quite powerful too, but you're writing something that's intended to be read. You have a message behind it, and also the expression in your history. And I feel like, man, it gives me tingles to think about that experience that you're going through. And your little sneaky peek for the people listening out, we've got some more of all of that expression on in Shaun's near future. So, but we're going to get to that at the end of the episode here. I do want to. I did kind of sidetrack you from the focus on addiction and how you kind of went down that rabbit hole.
So it's funny because when I was writing that book, I was praying and hoping that like nobody would read it. In a weird way, but I had friends and family and friends that I've known for 15, 30 years that never knew any of this stuff. So for me, that was the ultimate, like, it was the supreme act of vulnerability for me. And that's what also catapulted me into doing this podcast. But to go back, I first started understanding where my situation with my dad was when I would go to the bus stop and I would hear these kids talk about, their parents, and never really thought anything of it until, a couple of days at the bus stop, the kid was like smoking cigarettes, and I was like, oh, well, I guess I can do that. Maybe I can get in with this crowd of kids and actually find a purpose, or like a community of people that are just like me. So one of these kids one day asked me if I wanted to go to his house and smoke weed. And I was 16, and I just remember going there, and I asked him first, like, what is this going to do to me? And he was like, you're just going to forget everything. You're going to be numb. You're not going to feel anything. And I was like, sign me up. Because to this point, all I knew was anger, frustration, being sad, depressed, anxiety, all these other things that you can that you can think of being in this situation and never having an outlet. So now you're telling me there's something that I can smoke other than cigarettes that's going to take that all away. I was like, sign me up. So I first did that, and I felt exactly what he was talking about. And it was almost like this, I express it or explain it like there was this blanket that was over me, and nobody could see me. I could see the world, but I felt like I was invisible, which was a close feeling to me, right? Because I felt that way throughout my whole life. But now there was this extra edge where the pain got taken. So that came with more weed, and then, alcohol around high school age. As soon as I graduated high school, about 3 days after, we had moved to Colorado Springs, and I graduated from Air Force Academy High School. And 3 days after I graduated, I was on a bus to the Marine Corps. And I thought, being that I was getting away from my dad, like that was great. Well, it ended up that being in the Marine Corps was an extension of my dad because of all the rough situations, the yelling, the screaming. And it's not so much that I couldn't take it. It was just a lot for me to handle, because the one thing that I was just actually talking about this last week with somebody, but being in boot camp and they're the brim of their hats like bouncing off my forehead and yelling, and I kind of had a smirk on my face, and they're like, what's so funny about this? And I'm like, to myself, kind of like, you can't hit me, so you're basically just sitting there barking at me, and there's nothing that you can do. And I'm used to somebody letting all of their anger and frustration out on me. So over time, this led to a a hazing incident. There was a couple other things that happened in my school of infantry training. And I decided to go AWOL twice. I got removed from the Marine Corps after 45 days in the military prison, I guess, if you will. And, hindsight's 2020. If I could go back then, having the knowledge that I have now, I probably would have stayed in for 20 years. But I was a broken kid. The only thing that I knew how to do was run. And so that's what I did. So after the military, my dad passes away. I got a $50,000 life insurance policy. I spent half of that on drugs, being that I got in with the crowd that I knew before high school, which was the delinquent crowd, the ones that got in trouble, and that's who I kind of gravitated towards. So there was a lot of trauma bonding in that time, but I got myself in some pretty precarious situations. That's pretty much the extent of the drug scenario. I made it from Colorado back to New Hampshire. I was sober for about a year, and then I started, DJing, and lo and behold, I was really good at that. And I started playing raves and different parties, and it was only a matter of time before I dived right into rave drugs, and that was another 4 to 6 years. So I was probably in active addiction for I'd say about 10 years. And that whole time, I was either on the couch, sleeping in my car. I didn't have like a place for me. I just had, the means that I survived with. So there were times that I ventured out on my own, but I always ended up back to having a roommate, or trying to, for lack of a better word, like live off of somebody, and I don't mean that in a bad way, just like, like somebody was established, I would live with friends or something. And, to me, that's still somewhat homeless, because I'm not taking accountability for myself. So, in a nutshell, I guess that's where it is. That's pretty much where
it's especially dangerous too, because aren't you just taking on their habits? Like if you're in their home and like, so now you're escaping the lifestyle that's DJing. And I was talking about this earlier this morning, is like, are there bartenders that don't drink or cannot be alcoholics? Yeah, they're out there, but you're in a very a tumultuous, or a risky environment. So if you're a DJ and you're couch surfing and you're in your chances of getting away from the substance abuse or the lifestyle is just very slim. So I can hear what you're saying. Like you weren't homeless, but you also were not making your own decisions. And not that you couldn't have put your foot down and said, hey, I'm not doing those drugs. But what's the likelihood of that? Anybody that's been in a scenario, you're staying at somebody's house, you're sleeping on the couch, you're doing what they're doing. You're not going to put up take a stand, while you're crashing at their house. So, I can see that, right? So and you said that was about 5 to 6 years that you were in that circuit, the DJ circuit.
Yeah, I still DJ now here and there. I have a couple friends in downtown in my city I'll play and stuff. But for the most part, you're absolutely right. I lived with people that were like me, and there was multiple medication addictions to Percocets to whatever you can imagine. At this point, there was no discriminatory thing for me. I did everything that would take pain away, until I realized through therapy years later that the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change. So which one do you want to do? I ended up in a transitional housing for veterans, and they gave me the opportunity and said, hey, we have a job opening for this place called the Safe Station, which was like, in our town, you could go to a fire station, and the fire station would basically bring the clients to us, and we would help them get services, get assessments, and all this stuff. When I had been there for about 3 months, a couple of kids came back to the Safe Station, and they told me that they were still sober, and if it wasn't for me, that that they don't know where they would be. And I was like, whoa. So I had started this saying, like, you really want me to talk to people that are like, you think that's going to be healthy? I mean, I had been sober for maybe 3 years, not really sober. I was smoking weed, but if you follow a harm reduction model, that what I was doing compared to smoking weed was definitely, I was in recovery. So, up to this point, I was like, you really think that I'm the one that's going to be able to, I didn't believe in myself at all. And when this started happening, that's when the light turned on for me. And I was like, wow, like I'm actually doing something, and it's changing, it's altering the trajectory of people's lives, or it's at least setting off light bulbs, and they're like, I don't want to live like this anymore. Or I used to tell them, when you just get a couple days sober and you realize that you don't have to fight anymore, you start to really understand that there is a better life out there. So that pretty much started the whole human services jobs and substance use and mental health. And
so really you touched on you touched on the like what I call, like, you get a little breathing room. And let me ask you, do you share this opinion with me that breathing room increases over time with the amount of time that you've been participating in recovery? Yes. Some people do this on their own. I was fortunate enough to, fortunate, unfortunate, however you want to look at it. But when I was getting sober, it was early 2000s, or like when I started to. So I didn't really know there was therapy. I didn't know that there was places that I could go that would help me stop using. I just knew that at the end of my addiction in Colorado Springs, if I didn't get on a bus and come back home to New Hampshire, that I was going to die. And I didn't want to die. So I called my parents and I said, you need to give me a bus ticket back home. If you don't do this, I'm going to end up dead tomorrow or the next day or the next day. And my parents were reluctant, but my stepdad kind of stepped in, and he was like, you can take this, but this is the last of it. If you're going to continue what you're doing, then we can't be a part of your life. And I was like, excuse my language, but that's pretty much what it came down to. Truth. Yeah, it's what it came down to for me. And even though I did have the years where I did ecstasy and all those other rave drugs, I still had got that breathing room, as you call it, or that window of, this is what recovery feels like. And when I realized, I was DJing in Springfield, Massachusetts one night, and I brought a CD to another local DJ there, and I was really jacked up that night. And he just looked at me and he said, if you want to take this really far, and you're a really good DJ, but if you want to go anywhere with this, you got to stop using drugs, man. And I was like, it kind of kicked me in the nuts, and again, I got that same feeling that I did leaving Colorado. And at that point, I was like, that's it. The only thing that I'm going to do from here on out is smoke and drink a little bit here and there. And once I got enough sobriety time, I realized that, like, I didn't like feeling altered. Like, I don't like mind altering. So if I did drink, I would get hammered, and I realized after an amount of time I didn't like not being in control of my body, and so that led me to stop drinking. And then to me it was just like, oh, we're smoking weed, like this is the less of all evils. And even over time, that even it started to make me paranoid. It started to have completely adverse effects to what it did for me in the beginning. And I believe that's because I've started to learn about who I am and why I did the things I've done, and no longer needed that cloak that I spoke about. So I don't want to now. What you're touching on is like the high level, the important and deeper elements of substance abuse. But there's another thing to be mentioned. You're also getting older. Right? Like, sure. It's like, it's like that 5-6 beers or 10, 12, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. As things progress, you learn more and you can take less, you know? So, you know, biologically, you're unable, like, you don't see a whole lot of DJs that are like, you know, like doing 20,000 person raves that are 40 years old. They're just, it's like hard to keep up, like with the pace and everything. And it just makes sense, you know, like that, you know, it's a fast paced kind of a lifestyle. And so, but yes, you are, you did get some breathing room. And so you gained a little bit of space to start making some better judgment calls. You're looking at things and you're thinking to yourself like, oh, what, damn, you know, if I feel this much clearer now, well, what if I stack another year or another 6 months or whatever that time frame looks like? What if I keep it going? What if I keep it going and I just don't blur the scene for myself? If I don't make it so hard to make decisions, you know, by, you know, and that's what you do when you escape all the time. You're not, when it does come time to make a decision, you either don't and you run, or you're less capable of making the right decision because you're blurred, you're foggy, and you're step slower. And so, like, I applaud you, man, for making these observations you've made.
It wasn't all butterflies and rainbows, you know. I mean, when you get to a year, you think like you can look forward, but it took me about 5 or 6 years of maybe that's a stretch, but 5 or 6 years before I really got it. But it took me a good 2 years of living my life a footstep at a time, one thought at a time, one foot placement at a time, going backwards, going forwards, going backwards even further, having to crawl my way up, always learning from, you know, not such great decisions, before I realized, like, this way that I'm living, even though I'm sober, this way that I'm living sucks. And like, I keep going backwards and forwards and backwards. And so for me, it was like, you know, I tell clients now, but for me, it was like, how many steps do you make from your bedroom to your bathroom when you wake up in the morning? And then from back to your bedroom, getting dressed, going downstairs, or going to your kitchen, you know, getting ready, going to your car to work. You know, there's a million footsteps in your day, and each one of those footsteps is a chance to change the trajectory of your life. So if you have a thought about using, if you pause in that moment, it's going to suck. It's really going to suck, right? But if you can just tell yourself, like, it's not worth it. Like, everything that I've put forth to this moment, even though it didn't go the way that I absolutely could have hoped that it has gone, I'm throwing all of it away if I go backwards, right? So that was the way that I used to look at substance use, and now I do that with like spending money, with arguments with friends, or arguments in relationships, or anything, to be honest. It's like, okay, let's go back to the footstep at a time. Like, is this next footstep going to put me in a better place today than I was yesterday? And if it's not, that's when I can have an internal dialogue with myself and say, like, what's really going on, and think about it before I act now. And that's something that took me 40 years to learn. You know, so that's pretty much the nutshell.
And I gotta say, yeah, it took you that long, but that's not even the slow paced program. You know what I mean? Like, you know, that's like, you know, it sounds like a lot of years, but damn, anybody that's done the work, like yourself and myself, like, you know, some people can consider the 40 years a blistering pace, and that you made it through. And some people don't make it through. So it's a blessing that I'm even talking to you here, brother. It's amazing. It's an amazing
you as well.
Journey So it's, I think that's awesome, man. And you're in the trenches. You're in there helping these clients now on a day-to-day basis, right? You're seeing real boots to ground kind of movement. You're in there shoulder to shoulder with these people, and nobody better to do it, right? Somebody that's walked the walk and also felt what they feel. And nobody can feel another person's entire unique journey. It's impossible. But man, it speaks volumes for the people that just understand enough to not judge, to be more patient, to listen a little bit more. And I just think that that's an outstanding place for you to be. But now I want to know where you're going. I know earlier in the conversation we're having now, I mentioned what may be on what I know is on in the near future for you. So tell everybody like what you're working on now. Like what do we expect to see from Sean Coffey?
So real quick, I had worked in the field from 2016 up to 20. I don't know if a lot of people are to know about this, but compassion fatigue and burnout in this profession is huge, right? So
it is very true. Yeah.
I was one of those people that was like, a therapist is going to help me. Like some guy just gets, $80,000, he gets a degree and he's going to tell me what I already know about myself and like all these cliches and taboos that come with, somebody who's, not ready to like do the inside work and actually look at themselves in a Harvard perspective. So I never did that. And then, I started to work with my therapist and I realized like, at one point I was going from job to job, like every 7 months. And I was just like, what's really going on? And I had serious compassion fatigue. And that's because I wasn't doing that internal work. Even though I was in therapy, I hadn't grasped the fact of, really sitting with myself and realizing, that I had these things going on. So I'm going through compassion fatigue really bad. That compassion fatigue learned, to burn out. And compassion fatigue, just for people out there, is it's specific to helping professions, right? Like when you're helping somebody, that's where you can get the compassion fatigue. And for me, I'm going through secondary trauma because now I'm sort of doing work on myself, but I'm having to go through, in a case management position, having 40 clients, I'm going through 40 other people's lives and as well as my own. And if I'm not healing myself, now I'm going through my own trauma, but I'm going through 40 other people's trauma. So that's 41 instances of trauma that I'm dealing with on a daily basis. And I took on this role that if you sit in a chair in front of me, I'm going to do whatever I have to do in order to make your life. But I never really flipped the camera and said, I need to do what's right for my life in order for me to help you. So I went for about a year and a half in that trauma, compassion fatigue kind of stuff. I'd really worked on with my therapist, and to a point where it was like, okay, now I've recognized it, and now I can set boundaries now. Self-care, I have all these things set in place where if I start to notice something's off, I have supervision at the job that I can talk to my supervisor about work stuff. I can talk to my therapist about stuff outside of work. So I have these checks and balances, if you will, kind of set up so that I'm, in a place to succeed. So after this year off, a couple of friends that had just said to me, like, you shouldn't go back into case management because that's pretty much where all this compassion fatigue started. So I applied for a position, which is a lead youth outreach provider for a local nonprofit in Massachusetts. It's called Community Teamwork. And so basically what I'm doing is I'm out there, boots on the ground, basically looking for youth from 16 to 24 that are experiencing homelessness, addiction, and everything that comes with that realm of life, and providing them services to help them kind of get their stuff back on track. And so it's really me going out into a field where I'm familiar with that lifestyle, and I'm familiar with the things that come with it, and the shame and guilt and the stigmas and all that stuff. And I'm really set up to take these young kids and show them that like they are worth something, and that they're young and their lives are still so there's so much time that they have that they can rebuild that stuff. So when you said where am I now or where am I going, this is a new position, but it's something that I've dealt with my entire life. And I feel really strongly that I'm in a position to be able to help, young kids, especially coming from my background, to be able to show them. And I don't really even have to use so much self-disclosure, but to help show them that there is a better way to do things. And if they just take that, like I said, take that one step at a time, they're going to get to where they need to go. So that's what I'm doing, currently as far as work goes. And I started to write another book. Actually, this has been a couple years in the making, but this book is called Project Backpack. And the premise to this book is that everybody who's walked this life takes their trauma, and for lack of a better explanation, they throw their shit in this backpack, and they just keep trekking forward. What they don't realize is that backpack, it weighs them down, and it gets so heavy that at some point you stop moving, and you don't realize when to stop moving because it just happens to you, but you get stuck. And this is when you make those decisions that take you backwards. So the premise of the book is that, like, for people to be able to understand trauma, realize that addiction is a symptom of trauma, and really take this backpack off and learn how to deal with it. Now, a lot of times it overflows. So for me, like, you're taking this trek forward, all the stuff's falling out of your backpack. Now you got to turn around, walk back and pick it all up. And you're carrying this, and you got to just deal with those things so that you can either keep your backpack empty or make room for more stuff. So the rest of the book, after understanding trauma and addiction as a symptom, is basically how to take this stuff out one by one and kind of deal with it in a way where you don't have to put it in the backpack, and you can become, it's cliche, but like one with yourself, or you can become free of the emotions and the chains that are from this trauma that are kind of keeping you in place, and how to continue that. So if you do end up putting something back in there, you can almost take that backpack right off, grab it, and say, these are the things that I know that works for me to release this stuff, and so I'm going to do that again. And even if you got to go to therapy, there's so many different avenues in this book that you can go through, or different ways to kind of help heal that. But for me, at least for me, it was therapy, and just really diving into why I started to feel the way I did, and recognizing that a lot of the shit, if not 100% of it, wasn't my fault, and that I am not a product of my circumstances. So that's the premise.
Yeah, I can see that you light up. I can see that you light up when you start talking about it. And because, first of all, the concept is fantastic. The analogy of our traumas and experience and so forth, I like, there's a couple elements of the analogy. One, it's a weight that we carry around, and it impedes on our ability to operate effectively in the current moment. It just makes us either slower, or we can't fit in through certain doorways and holes, and we're exceeding weight limits because of all this weight that we're insisting upon carrying. And then the other element of the analogy that I really enjoy is that we can unpack it and pack it. Because I think that people kind of like, and it's quite therapeutic to let things out, that there's value there, no doubt. But it's very, we're not monks. We don't walk around with the ability to carry nothing. So it's like, so what do you carry? And so packing the backpack is such an interesting element. It's an interesting and unique addition, I think, to something that's that works. I think the analogy works in the framework. It makes sense. It makes sense to me.
It's a little bit of cool. It's a little bit of an advanced skill, but you have to be able to sit in your own shit. You have to know that the relationships along the way that you've ripped apart and kind of tore up and thrown in the trash because you were just so focused on not hurting inside, they can be rebuilt. I with the biggest, most important relationship for me that I have reworked or relearned. My sister, we were together when I was really young, and my mom would tell me like she was your protector from my dad. She, protected me from him. Her and I growing up, the short periods that I did see her, we were amazing. And then when she got privy to my addiction and she realized that I was selfish and and all these other things, we kind of lost track and lost all communication. There was a long period of time where we didn't even speak. And I started this work. I started to really heal myself, and I started to look at, myself in a different light, and humility and vulnerability and all these things. And we have a really good handle on a relationship now. And so I'd say to listeners who are in that, somebody on a Facebook post had said, like, how do you rebuild these relationships after you've torn them apart and basically like crapped on them? And I was just like, it takes a lot, and sometimes it doesn't happen. And those are things that we have to live with as people with addiction, right? Like, we may have burnt the bridge so far that it's unrebuildable. But if you follow, I guess, AA or any of those type of programs, that like you do a step 4 or whatever it is and you forgive. That's not saying that person is going to forgive you or forget about it, but for you yourself, you have to put those things in a way and say, like, I forgive myself for how I was, because you can't hold on to it. Right? And I think when I got to that point where I was like, I'm going to put myself out there, I wrote her a few letters across time, and now we're in a good space. But yeah, it's like advanced thinking, but you just can't hold on to any of that stuff, because while you're getting sober, you're learning a new, just say myself, like, I'm learning a new Shaun. I'm learning that if I get angry, I know now through work and just, a lot of the stuff, that anger is a secondary emotion. So am I sad first? Am I depressed first? Do I have some type of emotion that led me to anger? So I use this example because it just makes sense, and I think we had talked about it, previous to the call. But when you're driving down a highway and you look in the rear view and somebody's on your butt flashing the lights, you want to brake check them because you're like, screw you, in the rear view mirror, whatever. My therapist, I told him the story because this actually happened to me. And I did step on the brake, and then I proceeded to follow them for a while. And that was my reactive days. And he said, are you sure that you didn't get startled or scared at first when you looked up and you saw a car there? And I was like, man, that's why you get paid so much money, right? But it's the truth. I was reacting. My anger was because, hey, you just scared me. And then I was angry. So along the way, you learn all these little things, and that's enough for me now to stop and set my foot and say, like, is this a true emotion? And if it is, let me walk through the scenario and see where I'm at. And that's helped me tremendously, because I've actually shut my mouth in arguments and realized that what we're arguing about is something that I did subconsciously. And I'm able to say sorry, where before I would just be like, screw you, this is who I am. If you don't like it, like, take it. I realize that now. Like, just because that's who you are, doesn't mean that, like, just because you're that way doesn't mean you're still an asshole when you were telling me that stuff. So there's a lot of little nuances and little things, but going through therapy and then writing these books and really having to be vulnerable. I've taken one chapter to my therapist 6 different times, right? Because he's like, there's not enough emotion in this. There's not enough, this or enough that. And it makes me want to choke the guy, but he's right. Like, I've lived my life. I'm up here, and here's the situation. And because I don't want to feel it, I have this tendency to talk about things from a bird's eye view, where you don't really feel it, but you get enough to understand what's going on. And that's a product of my childhood. Like, I never wanted to feel any of that stuff. So I would talk about these things from a heightened perspective, kind of looking down. So you would get enough, but you wouldn't really attach yourself to this situation, because there wasn't enough meat to the conversation. So I remember being in Barnes and Noble's bookstore, writing this chapter, and just all of a sudden crying out of nowhere. And it wasn't like a regular cry, it was like an ugly cry, to where like people that had seen me in there before are like, "You okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just writing the book." And they're like, "Oh, okay, I get it," but yeah, it's a multitude of those moments where I just realized, like, I'm actually dealing with this trauma. So in a sense, I'm helping people learn how to unpack their stuff, right? But I'm also getting deep enough and dark enough into these weird spots in my heart where I hold on to this trauma, and I'm actually letting it go through writing the book. So when you're asking like where I'm going, I feel like I'm on a trajectory to not boasting, but like to do big things and to help a lot of people just realize that like there's so much power in letting go of your shit that it doesn't pay to hold on to it. So that the what's it called? The quote is, when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of making a change, that's where true healing starts, right? Because it hurts for me to stay this way and for me to hurt other people and hurt myself. But changing, there's less pain if I change. So you get to that point where you just, okay, cool, now I know what to do, and I'm going to change, and then off to the races.
No, hey, Shaun, I agree with you that you are doing big things. You're doing valuable things.
Thank you.
And I think that you're on point. There's so many strong points to where your focus is, and one of them being where the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of changing. And then that goes to some other adages, is like the devil that I know is better than the one that I don't. This is what doesn't perpetuate anything. It just eliminates all momentum, and then people stay stuck. And it's a result of these, people could call some of these things cliches, but there's truth in them. That's why they became known phrases and very applicable phrases. There's truth here, and so you're hitting the nail on the head as far as I'm concerned. I love it. And I think that when you're talking about like the writer's journey, I self-published a book, and I've experienced, and by no means am I a high grade author. I know this, and they say like your first book is shit. Okay, your first draft is shit. It's like there's truth there. There's and if you don't get that first one out of the way, you'll never make it to the higher grade version that comes next.
Okay.
However, you do have another version on the horizon. I think you're still working on the actual title though, right? So I don't want to nail you down there.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's Project Backpack. I think there's a little motto that's going to follow on that, just as unpack, unlearn, and live. And that pretty much sums up really what the book is about. So I've nailed down the actual title, but I feel like if you put a title on it right off the bat, then you pigeonhole yourself. We talked about this, previous, but I think I pigeonhole myself, and that's when the creativity stops, because I'm like, is this in line with the title, and all this other stuff. So I basically I named the book because the backpack is what I really made the premise of the book. But as far as that, it's sort of like a working title, and I'm working with the woman who published the Boys Do Cry, and so I send her a chapter. She helps me out. I'm able to kind of tie the chapters together, and I think the biggest thing I've learned is that it's okay to fail, and I feel like I fail all the time. And we're going into this book now. It's been years of working on this book, and she's still hanging in there like, okay, like you're going to do it in your own time. And I'm finally to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm making sense to myself. And if it comes out like shit, like you were saying, there's somebody that's going to pick it up at a store or going to buy it offline, and they're going to resonate with it. And it's cliche to say this because I think a lot of people do, but if one person or two or five or 10, however many, but if one person stops using or starts therapy or learns that like the product of their circumstances isn't who they are, and that they can release some of that, they can release some of the stigma or shame or guilt, then I did my job. So
oh yeah, man.
That's
I love it, man. That's
yeah.
great. I have a lot of faith in you, man, and so I really appreciate you coming on today.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it.
I inquired again about the title because I'm gonna let these beautiful people listening know. We got a little bit of time because there's going to be a gap between when I actually publish our episodes. So by that time, I'm gonna ask you again, and so hopefully by that point we're gonna have some concrete promotion going for you because people need to know where to get it.
Yeah, I'm gonna be. I'm hoping to wrap it up in September, so we'll have
there
that.
We go.
You can get the first book if you just do firstnamelastname.com. So Sean Coffey with a Y. It's funny, people always say coffee like you drink, but with a Y. Yeah, SeanCoffey.com. All the way to the bottom of that. There's a copy of the book. You just click on it; it'll take you to the link. There's also other podcasts where once this one comes up, you'll be able to find that as well. And just kind of a little background of my story, and then when I do keynotes or I do speaking, there's a couple explanations of those on it. But yeah, this podcast when it comes out, and the book you can get off the website.
Yeah, I'm gonna load it up, man. I'm gonna have all that stuff for these glorious people listening to guys that were once we were once assholes, now we're less assholes, and we're doing the best we can out here, and I think that what Sean's putting out there is kick-ass. So again, thank you, my friend. I do appreciate your time. I appreciate all the work you're doing.
Absolutely, man. I sincerely appreciate you having me on, and I hope people can grasp some of this stuff. So.
Awesome. All right, guys. Until next time, we'll see you.